only reason. It's the only reason we are alive and doing as well as we do is because we are the smartest. Anytime we find a problem, we find a solution to that problem. So anytime we, run out of space, we find a way to make more space or live in a smaller place. We are adapting to any situation that's thrown at us. Mammals in general have the ability to learn and remember things, solve puzzles, and some of them use tools. Using tools, as we mentioned when we were talking about birds, is an indicator of intelligence, because you look at something and realize it has a purpose other than being a stick or other than being a rock. It can be used as something else. Using tools indicates intelligence. Mammals have the most developed brains in the animal kingdom. The brains are the largest and they're very folded with lots of wrinkles. That increases the surface area. The more wrinkly the brain, the smarter the animal is. We already mentioned that there are a few other animals that can use tools: the crows, the ravens, parrots, and an octopus. And then we've already talked about what are other intelligent animals. We're the smartest.
Dude.
Doesn't mean we always make the best decisions,
I'm scared to play.
but we're the smartest.
I don't want to. But
I'm losing all the games.
I was grinding on the moments. I finished my moment for week 2, and then what's the name? I got like 11 bucks stones in my pocket. I needed a power hitter, and I bought CJ Chrome. That's all he's gonna do is hit things for me. But you're on my
You're watching the videos of Coco the gorilla or whatever, the psychology yesterday.
It's pretty cool with that.
Harambe?
Gorilla could do.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's a
Well, and I'm
gorilla
sure
thing.
some of you guys have seen the TikTok videos where the dogs have buttons and they can, and the dogs talk.
Man, dogs are smarter than we think.
Dogs are really smart.
Have you ever seen Martha Speaks?
You ever seen Molly and me?
What's that one?
Martha Speaks? She eats
Yeah.
vegetables like that, the soup that has the letters in it, and she learns how to talk.
Suicide Squad has some.
The letter, the alphabet soup made
Yeah.
her speak.
Someone like
Yeah, I've seen a lot of TikTok videos where the buttons have words and the dogs push the buttons. Tell you what they want. Yeah. And I think it's possible. They realize that if they hit this button, it means they get a treat. And if they hit this one, it means they go outside. I don't know if they know what the sound means. But I mean, if you tell a dog to sit, then they know the word enough that they can sit. So, I don't know. Your dog what?
If you look at her and you just go like that, she'll sit down.
Sometimes it's actions.
If you lower your hand, she'll lay down.
Sometimes it's actions, sometimes it's words. It depends on how the dog is trained.
You can do birds. Different birds. We didn't two dogs.
Is this Miss Ayers? I do.
yeah.
Yes, I'll sit here that way. Zoe, you need to go to the commons to get your injury looked at. You should bring Liz. It's not an arm injury, is it?
No, it's not.
No, it's a face injury.
Oh, it is. They have all of them on here. Which one is that? Which Roman numeral is that? That's the one in the yeah. So when it's in front, you subtract. And when it's Mark Anderson taught me that. Alright,
Okay, so here's some of the more intelligent animals. Dolphins, of course, we've mentioned that. Parrots, pigs are actually quite smart. I would like a pet pig, but they just get too big.
No, just a little.
Yeah, but you don't know that they're not going to grow big. You You have no words.
I like the big mouth. They make one of his
Dog.
Chimpanzees are primates, dogs are intelligent, and of course the octopus is intelligent. This is in Google Classroom. Now, just like everything else, there's some controversy about what is the smartest animals. Taking humans out of the equation, primates are the main ones. Then dolphins, elephants, crows, pigs, dogs, parrots, pigeons, octopus, and a rat. So even though there's a lot of birds on here too, it's mostly mammals that are on the list. Now, this varies, of course. If you put in top 10 most intelligent animals, you might get a different list, and that's fine, because how do you really tell which one's the smartest? But pretty much, primates are the top of the list. Let me make sure my sound is on.
Hi, I'm Maddie.
And I'm Sam.
Thank you again for all of your brilliant questions. We're going to do our best to answer some of the most puzzling ones.
Yeah, and first up we've got one from Junior Penatilla who asks, can animals make complicated tools? And what's the most complicated tool an animal has used?
Yes, animals definitely use tools, and one of my favourites is the sea otter. So when a sea otter has found itself a tasty little mollusk or a crustacean, it will float on its back and use a stone, which it just gently rests on its stomach, and then it can bash the mollusk against it to open it up.
And they've actually got a favourite stone, which I think is quite sweet. And they're not the only things that have a favourite tool, much like the rest of us. Capuchin monkeys often have a favourite sort of log or stone that can act like a little bit of a groove. They can put nuts in, so effectively act like an anvil, and they get another big stone, often as big as its head, and give it a good smashing, and then give it up from there.
It's like a very basic nutcracker. Yeah, and birds too are really great tool users. New Caledonian crows have been known to whittle branches into sort of little hook shapes, and they can use that to get to food in hard to reach places.
And crows in Japan are actually using some of our tools. They're dropping nuts onto roads so that cars will run over them and break them for them. And it gets even cleverer because they'll drop them onto pedestrian crossings so they know the traffic's going to stop, and then they can fly down safely and pick them up.
Yeah, I love that so much.
It's
I
genius.
mean, all of these tools are fairly basic, but they definitely get the job done. But let's think, what are the most sophisticated tools?
Well, chimps do something quite cool. They often sort of grab little long branches and use them to fish for termites.
Oh yeah.
They sort of stick them down holes and waggle them to agitate the termites. And the termites attack the stick, and then they can just easily pull the stick out and termite kebab. Okay, Jennifer Love says her son has always wanted to know, do you ever really touch anything?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. It depends what you really mean by touch. Sam, I'm touching Sam.
We're gonna go on from that because I just wanted to talk about the intelligence one. I know, I was like, that kind of came out of nowhere. I obviously watched the beginning of the video and didn't realize it continued. Anyways, mammal training. Mammals can be trained, and that goes with the intelligence portion of it. Because they are so smart, they can be trained to do things. And we're going to do an activity with animal training next week. We'll work on that. Now, in the animal world, there's something called positive reinforcement. Positive reinforcement is what is used most of the time for animal training. It is when the animal does something right, you give it a treat. And usually it's in the form of a treat, because most animals like treats and they will work for food. Not all of the animals, I mean, you don't use this for all of them. If you've seen police dogs being trained to do something, sometimes they give the police dogs a toy, like a favorite toy for them to play with. And that's just easier for the officer to carry a toy around than carry a bunch of treats around. So positive reinforcement is one of the easiest and best ways to train an animal. You tell the dog to sit, and then you give it a treat when it sits. And then eventually it learns that if I keep sitting when I'm told, I'll get a treat. When the animal doesn't perform the behavior correctly, what is found to be most effective is to just ignore the behavior. So when you tell the dog to sit and it doesn't sit, don't hit the dog. I mean, that's not acceptable. Zoe left to get her injury checked. But, yeah, you can, I'll just take it. Is that hurts?
Yeah.
And negative punishment like that is not something that you want to do. That's going to make the animal scared of you and not want to perform whatever you want it to do. Now, a lot of times when you see somebody training an animal, they're going to use a whistle or a clicker. This is because when the animal does the behavior, you want them to know right away that this is the behavior you want. When I say sit, you want them to know right away, okay, you sat, that's good. And so that's what the clicker and the whistle do. As soon as the animal sits, you click with the clicker, and then you give the treat. It's letting them know that it's more immediate. So they make that association in their head, because it helps train faster if they know immediately, okay, a click means I did it right, and then the treat is going to come later. So that's why a lot of trainers, at the zoo we trained animals a lot, and one of my coworkers actually quit the zoo to open his own animal training business. And now he works with people in the community to help them train their animals and care for their animals. It's too bad that he can't come here, because it would have been cool to have him come and do some training demonstrations for us. But anyways, the training techniques he uses is you ignore the bad behavior, you reward the positive behavior, and when they do the behavior, click immediately, because they learn to associate, okay, I did it, that click means I'm going to get a treat in just a moment.
So it starts to rain, I'll take the range today.
I love thunder.
Freaking caveman.
I think it's supposed to. Yeah.
It was supposed to yesterday. It is very, very dark outside. And the wind is very
Yeah, 100% chance of rain at 10, 50, 40. But apparently it's supposed to stop raining at 3 and then be partly cloudy, so.
Just make sure today we learn.
I guess.
No way.
But then it's supposed to rain like from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m.
See, I am still not used to all the rain here and how everything is green. In Garden City, I would be watering my lawn every single day just to get it to look a little green, because it never rained there.
Well, like my cousin just got deployed to Japan for the Marines, and he was asking me about prom, and I was like, oh yeah, it's next week. And he's like, oh, at least it'll be nice. And I was like, well, it's been like 60 and rainy and weird.
I love the rain though. Alright, so behavior is something that the animal already does naturally. Dogs normally sit. That's not something weird we're asking them to do, is to sit. I mean, they do that. You ask them to lay down, dogs lay down. So usually the behavior that we train for is something that they are already doing naturally. And this comes with at the zoo too. If you ask, a lot of times they train the animals to put their paws up, and that way they can check like their underbelly. And that's something that an animal would not normally do in the wild anyways, is kind of stand up sometimes up against a tree or up against a rock, things like that. Sometimes they would ask them to press up against the side of the gate so that we could check the side or give a shot or draw a blood sample or something like that. So behaviors are typically things that an animal would already do. We're just encouraging them to do that more and on command. Opening the mouth, that's another one that animals at the zoo are trained for, so we could check teeth and any like rotten teeth or broken teeth or
Did you have
things.
bears at your zoo?
We did. We had sloth bears.
What is a sloth bear?
Do you know the Jungle Book? Baloo the bear? That was based off of sloth bears.
So they're like blue.
No. They're about, they're pretty big. Like this big. They're fluffy. They were brothers. They had a beautiful exhibit, and then they promptly like destroyed the whole exhibit, and now it was just like dirt with holes everywhere. They were cool. They could suction, like they could make their mouth like a little vacuum, and so as I left the zoo, they were starting to allow for visitors to feed the sloth bears in a tube. And so you hold the tube up and they like suck out the stuff from the tube. It was pretty cool.
Red pandas are my favorite animal.
We had red pandas at the zoo too.
Especially when they throw their hands up and start running.
So with training, anytime you're working on a behavior, it's usually best to have one person work on that behavior because consistency and patience is important. Like, so when we were training my dog, it was easier for me to train the dog first, and once the dog knew what to do, then teach the kids how to do it. Because if the kids tried to do it, it would just confuse the dog because the kids wouldn't be consistent. So having one person work with the animal initially, and that's how it worked at the zoo. When an animal was being trained, it was usually with the same keeper, because that same keeper would do it the same way every time until the animal learned the behavior, and then they would teach the other keepers how to do it too. So consistency and patience are super important when training an animal, making sure you do it the same way every time so the animal doesn't get confused.
Miss Ayers, we should try to train your ferrets when you bring them in.
We should try to train Liz to fight other animals.
Oh, good luck getting the ferrets trained. It took me
Every time she eats one of the spiders, we give her
this long to finally get them all to use the litter box. And Okie is still biting, so we're trying to work on that.
I think you should bring them in on Monday.
Tuesday.
Tuesday?
Coming in on Tuesday.
That works. I just
Do you think you should give him like teething toys? Do you think that would like?
What, the ferrets' teething toys?
I don't know.
They have things to chew on, but Okie is several years old, and I don't know who had him passed. And so he had bad upbringing. Akuma, she started off biting, but she was a baby. So once I got her biting, she only bites now if she's excited and wants to like play with your sock or something.
Well, I mean, like, I'm sure, like, for the boy, we probably had, like, little kids that used to, like, roll around. Because I used to babysit the girl who would, like, throw her cats around, and then they would, like, fight me if I tried to pick them up.
Well, and Okie's already doing a little better, but he still bites even me. If you're wearing long sleeves, he usually won't try and bite. He searches for like your skin. Like he knows it's your skin that he's gonna bite. So like if you're wearing long sleeves, he'll search for your hands to try and bite. I know. But the kids don't really like him. But I still make sure to give him attention. And my daughter, she's such a sweetheart. She's like, nobody likes Okie, Mom. I'll hold Okie. Yeah, when Okie would actually, or Akuma would draw blood. Yeah. Okie has never drawn blood, but he's like so.
Oh my lord.
Akuma's good now. Monday is good now. Monday very rarely bites unless he's playing and excited, and then he might like bite your ankle because he wants you to play with him. Alright, so training at the zoo. A lot of my training experience is based on the zoo. That was something that we did. We had to train the education animals. We were training the animals to do behaviors. But here's an example of zoo training.
Everything about animal training is based on basic laws of nature. We all do things to gain things we like. We're just using the laws of nature to improve animal welfare. We train animals in zoos and other facilities for lots of different reasons. One of the main ones is to train them to cooperate in their own medical care so it can be stress-free. And it's fun for them, so it's enriching. We train animals for projects like studies on cognition, or maybe how do they process different things. Here at Oregon Zoo, a very famous study was the one done with the polar bears that gives us information that we can use to help protect animals out in the wild. One of the cool things about training with positive reinforcement is that it creates eager participants because we're usually delivering something that they really enjoy. It might be a favorite food item. Sometimes we use tactile, like a scratch on the butt or something like that they really enjoy. And they know that that good thing is going to happen if they participate. The other part that's really important is that they always have the choice to participate. So if an animal doesn't want to participate in training that day, they don't have to. But if they choose to participate, really good things are going to happen. I've been really fortunate to work with the Oregon Zoo on a conservation project in Borneo where we were training quite a few orangutans to prepare them for release or to improve their conditions if they are going to be living in the sanctuary. Training an animal to be prepared for release is different in the sense that they need to learn how to acquire food, they may need to learn independence and not be so dependent on the people that are caring for them. When you're directly having an impact on animals that have the potential to be released in the wild, that's about as good as it gets. A lot of people think that when you train an animal that it's about doing cute tricks and things like that. It may actually serve a really important function for us to take care of the animal. So a good example might be when we ask an animal to lift a foot, and we can look at the underside of that, but it may kind of look like, what a dog would do if you were asking it to shake its paw or wave at you. But in fact, we see it as a really practical behavior. Same with something like turning around. We may need an animal to turn around so that we can look at other body parts or have access to those body parts. I wish everyone knew that there is animal training that's based in positive reinforcement that your animal would respond to and it would improve its welfare. I always say my goal is to leave a legacy of kindness to animals by sharing this information because it will absolutely improve the lives of the animals that you are caring for.
Okay, so she was using a whistle in a couple of those videos because, again, that whistle or that clicker is going to be a good indicator that a treat is coming. And you don't have to write this down, this is in Google Classroom. Just kind of wrapping up with mammals and some of the extremes of mammals. We've already mentioned the giant panda. It's weird. It shouldn't be alive. It has tiny, tiny babies, the giant panda. The giant panda has tiny babies that are like this small, and they only have enough milk for one. If they have twins, the other one's gonna die. And it's because they will only eat bamboo, and bamboo has no nutritional value.
But they're still fat.
They're still fat, so that tells you how much bamboo they have to eat. So their milk has poor nutrition. Also, they're only fertile 2 days a year. 2 days. So if a male and a female are not together for those 2 days, that's it for a whole nother year.
So is that why they're kind of like going on to the endangered list?
I think they are on the endangered list, but because they are so many in zoos and they're monitored, zoos can tell when those 2 days are, and they can get the male and the female together. And then if they do have twins, they can raise one of the babies by hand and leave the other one.
How that would be to have a pet baby panda? Like, just imagine.
Yeah, big though.
Like a 400, 500 pound panda in your house. It'd be like a livestock.
All right, the eye, we mentioned that one as well. Long finger for scooping bugs, big ears for hearing, and large eyes since it's nocturnal. Blue whale is the largest, and the sloth moves super slow and only goes to the bathroom, or goes to the ground to go to the bathroom and does not groom their fur. So their fur has their own like little ecosystem with bugs and algae and stuff. All right, some other animals: naked mole rat, blue whale, flying fox. The flying fox is the largest bat. Its wings, if you put one wing on the floor and stretch the other out, would be 6 feet. So I'm 5'9". The wingspan would be taller than me. Slow loris, three-toed sloth, pink fairy armadillo. He just looks weird. Just so weird. A type of armadillo, but kind of strange. And then the pangolin, he's also kind of weird. He's in the same family as the armadillos, but he's got kind of this plated kind of body armor.
Where are
look.
pangolins found? Where are they?
Africa? I'm not sure. Not here. All right, other extremes. You don't have to write this down either. This is also in Google Classroom. Some mammals have venom. The duck-billed platypus has a venomous spur. The slow loris has a venom gland. Actually, we have slow lorises at my zoo as well, and even though they're these cute little fluffy little primates, they are a type of primate, the venom could be quite dangerous, so we never really handled or touched them. Naked mole rats have a queen. We mentioned that already. We already mentioned vampire bats. Star-nosed mole, the nose is super sensitive, and it helps them detect worms, grubs, and basically anything else underground. Other interesting facts, some mammals have a baculum. We mentioned this before, I think. The baculum is a penis bone, and mice and rats actually have this. But the longest baculum belongs to a walrus, and it's like 3 feet?
Oh my
3
God.
feet long
Oh!
for the baculum.
Yeah.
But because it is a bone, it can be broken too. The smallest mammal in the world is the shrew, which ties with the bumblebee bat, and they are so tiny they weigh less than a dime.
That shrew weighs less than a dime.
The shrew that we had yesterday was not the Eutrachian shrew. It was a short-tailed, so it was larger. But it still didn't weigh a lot. All right, that's it. You guys are done with notes. This is sad. It's the end of the year. All right, so the only thing that you guys had to do today was the bell work. The field guide is due next week, and we will start our mink dissection on Monday. Any questions?
Why am I talking to